Utes absolutely dominate this game, and I'm just fired up because for the first time in a long time in back-to-back weeks, my team scored over 40 points on offense, and yours did too.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for making Locked On Utes your first view and listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time listening to the show, make sure you like and subscribe. My name is JT Wistrcill, coming to you live after the Utah Utes improved to 2-0 on the season after they throttle Cal Poly 63-9. Utah jumped out to a big first half lead, and mostly thanks to defense. Offense had a couple of punts, but overall still a strong day for the offense. And then in the second half, obviously Utah just completely pulled away, 63-9. Utah outgained Cal Poly 518-223. Utah gets it done through the air and on the ground in this one, over 500 yards of total offense. They didn't quite get to the 70 that I thought they would in this game, but they still have one heck of a day. Also, I am going to be taking your guys' live comments and questions in the comments, so make sure you guys get those in as soon as you can. We probably won't go as long as we did on last week's show because not as much to talk about. James Dillman already said UCLA is getting beat worse by UNLV than Utah beat them, which I don't know if that's exactly true wise, but yeah, obviously UNLV does not look fantastic right now. I mean, UCLA does not look fantastic right now going against UNLV. That's why it's nice that the Utah Utes look fantastic. I think the biggest takeaway from a actual Utah football standpoint of 2025, because in some ways the biggest takeaway is from this game could be how good Byrd Ficklin looked. Right as I said that, Utah Utes 26 literally said Byrd looks good. So I mean, I feel the same way. That I want that to be my biggest takeaway, but at the same time, I'm like, what's the biggest takeaway for this season? And I think it's how good the defense looked. Yes, there were times where Cal Poly completed a big play or two, and they missed out on a couple other ones as well. But at the end of the day, the Utah defense made so many plays. Jackson Benne's pick six, right? What a fun surprise Jackson Benne has been. I heard a little bit of buzz about him coming into the season, but it's hard for me to say, oh, Jackson Benne's going to be a guy for this Utah team because of all the returning production and talent that they already had coming back, right? So I just didn't know what his role was going to be in both weeks now, whether it's making a catch on offense last week or a pick six on defense, and he made a ton of tackles last week too. He was at another 5 tackles here as well. He had 3 pass breakups in this game. He's just really becoming a star before our eyes, and it's really fun to watch Jackson Benne, his growth, and he's been a really fun player for this Utah team. So love what we're seeing out of Jackson Benne in this one, and love what I'm seeing from this Utah team. How about Jonathan Hall's interception? That was something we talked about on Friday. I said I thought Jonathan Hall would have an interception in this game. Obviously would not have ever predicted the way in which he had that interception. I mean, my gosh, it's just it's thrown, he bats it back into the QB, and then he is the one who just rips it away basically and gets it down there. But yeah, love what this Utah Utes team continuing to displays. John Henry DALY continues to look incredible. 4 tackles in this game, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss as well. Love what he continues to do. You know, the pass rush in this game for Utah is a defensive line that is growing, continuing to improve to get better, but it is still clearly better than what Cal Poly's offensive line was. See Paul Fitzgerald get in for a sack and a half. We already mentioned John Henry DALY. Cash Dillon getting in on a sack, half a sack for Lance Holtzclaw as well in this one. This is a Utah team that's got a lot of guys that are capable of producing, and really fun to get to see this defense continue to step up, do their thing. Cal Poly, for the most part, really struggled to move the ball on them. Love the way the linebackers fly around the field. The safeties making plays as well. It's a very talented Utah defense, and Cal Poly simply had no answers whatsoever. Also, like, if you do look across the country, I know, someone mentioned, like, to the right said, I felt like this was the sloppiest 63-9 game I've ever watched. Makes me nervous. I do think that's fair, because I think there were some things in here where you're like, oh, Devon Dampier, he missed Tobias Merriweather early on, right? It was an easy 3rd and 4th, and he throws away behind him. There were some holding calls on Utah as well, and just some incompletions, some miscommunications. There was just some breakdowns offensively that did lead to Utah punting in the first half more than they punted last week. So why is that? Well, I do think part of it is Utah did try to do and work some things in that they're trying to put live in the game experience and grow and get better at in a game, rather than always running what's best for them. Because there was one drive where Devon Dampier threw it 3 times in a row. Like, that's just not – this Utah offense is at its best when they run the ball still. I like Devon Dampier making throws, making plays. How about the pass he threw to Dallin Bentley, Ryan Davis as well? I mean, it was a good catch by Ryan Davis, obviously, too, but is a Utah team that has lots of talented individuals that step up and make plays for this team. But yeah, I do think it's fair to say there were definitely sloppy elements to this game because Utah at times there were nearly some coverage busts. There was that double pass that Cal Poly tried and the guy was wide open. It was just a missed throw. So those are areas Utah has to continue to clean up and get better. But what leaves me encouraged is Utah has their sloppy moments and they're still blowing teams out and their backup quarterbacks are getting in the second half versus it's not an FCS team. But I don't know if you guys saw Florida lost to USF today. South Florida basically beat Florida, which is just insane to think about. So I am just encouraged that this Utah team, yes, they have things they need to continue to improve and get better at, but despite that, they're still balling out. And one of the guys who balled out, Utah Utes 26, you were the first to say it, said Byrd looked so good. You also said, I thought they said Isaac won the QB2 job. That is what KYLE Whittingham said. I'm trying to monitor and keep up to date on all the press conference happenings. I'm curious to see if it is reported. Well, first of all, Witt said that just on watching Byrd Ficklin, he said just watching him from the sidelines, he's really good. He's a kid who has the right demeanor to play the position. One thing also said they're preserving Isaac Wilson's red shirt is part of the equation and not playing him tonight. They wanted to give Byrd some action. That's very interesting. Also, no Jaron Kump, no Logan Fauno today. That was more precautionary. I am surprised that Utah used Smith Snowden and Lander Barton on offense tonight. I just thought this would be a game where you want to give them rest, but Utah is also just like, hey, those guys are continuing to learn and grow in this offense. Let's give them some live game reps and action. And I got no problem with that decision. So to me, I totally get why Utah wanted to do that in this game too. But yeah, going back to, as we mentioned, Isaac Wilson, they want to preserve a red shirt for Isaac is interesting because they did put him in the game last week. Even though he actually, what I should say, he was in the game, but there was a penalty before the snap happened on the play where Dampier's helmet came off. So he actually might have not technically played last week either, unless I'm forgetting him getting in a moment. But Byrd has now played in both games. That's where it's kind of interesting when you talk about like, hey, are you trying to preserve Byrd's red shirt too? I'm not sure exactly what the answer on that is, but that's something we'll continue to monitor. But yeah, I mean, Byrd Ficklin obviously doing a lot of really encouraging things. Byrd's legs are something that have me incredibly excited just to watching the way he moves. He's so quick in this game. He had the touchdown run, not a long touchdown run, but obviously we had Wayshawn Parker go off for one. He did have a long run as well. Byrd Ficklin was able to in this one. So I mean, 38 yards, right? So 2 touchdowns for him rushing. No, he did have the long touchdown. I got my wires crossed because when he was first in, he gave it to Wayshawn Parker, and Wayshawn had the long touchdown up the middle. He had the touchdown down the sideline. Then late, he had the walk-in touchdown. But Byrd was 4 for 4, 53 yards passing, and 5 rushing attempts, 55 yards. He just looks really comfortable in command of this offense, which for a guy who just showed up as a freshman in the spring of 24 is incredibly impressive. Byrd has all the makings to me based on the initial signs we've seen. He's done it against a not very good UCLA team and a not good Cal Poly team, right? But he looks like a guy who could potentially grow into a future starting quarterback at Utah, which is encouraging that at this young as a freshman, we can already say that. A reminder, not saying like right now that Byrd is better than Isaac Wilson, but let's not forget when Isaac got in against Southern Utah, he still threw 2 picks last year. So it's encouraging that Byrd, and I do think Byrd is playing in a better offense, looks better than Isaac did at this time last year. Love his speed, love his quickness, love what he provides. And it would be interesting to see. I know they talked about like, hey, they wanted to get Byrd some more reps and everything, but I'm just very interested in the fact that Byrd was played tonight as much as he was and has now played in both games. Is Byrd the backup quarterback? Kyle said it was Isaac, but talked about maybe preserving a red shirt for Isaac based on the press conference quote, as I mentioned, that I was able to find. So it's just something I find very interesting overall in this one too. So fun to see Ryan Davis be part of the offense as well. I just want to mention that. And yeah, the backup quarterback position is something I want to continue to dive in on future shows, but do want to continue to take your guys' questions as we do go live here. Make sure you're sending your questions in. Appreciate all of you guys for joining us. I love talking about Utah football, but it's also fun when this team is exciting and really good. You guys have mentioned a little bit, right? The sloppy, I'm Anzea 117, if that's how we say it. The first half was sloppy with penalties, but I'm happy with the rest of the game. However, UCLA losing doesn't help us look better. No, but we thought that though, right? Like, yes, Utah blew out UCLA. And I thought it was more good than bad UCLA, but UCLA, you could tell they had a lot of things to work on and improve. Also, sometimes when you let one team beat you twice, that might have happened. with this Utah UCLA thing. They might have been so frustrated. Sometimes you take your frustrations out on that, but sometimes there's dissension and it divides you. And that could be what's going on in that UCLA game as well. So I totally agree that what's going on right now with UCLA losing to UNLV does not make Utah look great, but also the fact stands that Utah went on the road. And let's not forget how hard it is to win on the road in college football, unless you're South Florida, apparently, and you can go into Gainesville and do exactly that. But it's very hard to win on the road in college football. So you still got to give Utah a ton of credit for going in and being able to do exactly that in Pasadena last week, and then came back home today and took care of business. There are things they have to get clean up on, but a reminder, as good as Utah's offense looked last week, this is still a quarterback and his wide receivers who are trying to get on the same page. Devon Dampier hasn't been throwing to these guys for a year. He's been throwing to them since the spring, and some of these guys even came in as transfers and haven't gotten as much work, right? Like another guy we thought was going to be a big part of this offense that hasn't had a catch through 2 weeks now in the season is Larry Simmons. I'm trying to remember if I saw Larry Simmons out there tonight. I don't know that I did, but I love that Ryan Davis has the connection with Dampier from their time playing last year. They wanted to get Tobias Merriweather going more. He had that nice catch for 17 yards after who held the Lomu holding, which I didn't love that call, but nice to see him be able to continue to get involved, even if definitely want to see more of that, a little more Hunter Andrews tonight. I'm so impressed with Dallin Bentley. That was a guy I was down on coming this year. I didn't love what we saw last year. I wasn't sure what the ceiling was, and I've loved what I've seen from Dallin Bentley. So massive credit, shout out to him. Love that he was the guy this week that did the jersey reveal with. Love seeing these guys go out there and ball. And Ann's 117 again said, thanks for another show. Let's hope we do better against Wyoming and that UCLA wins. Byrd looks so much better as our backup. Byrd has. That's what's interesting. But it's also, once again, not against the best competition. He's looked better than Isaac did against them last year, but how would that fare against Utah's yet to face a good defense, right? Like that's also just a fact. So how would that look against a good defense? We don't know. Love what I've seen from Byrd. He's looked really good, really comfortable in his offense. Jason Beck has done a good job making it easy on him. How's that going to work? How's that going to flow? All things we're still learning and discovering. Also, we had James Dillman say offense is putting up points. I'm actually more concerned about the defense if Utah plays a prolific offense. I do think that's fair to say that Utah needs to continue and grow on defense, because there were times that they almost did give a big place tonight. But there were also times they almost gave a big plays against UCLA. Utah's very aggressive defensively, and sometimes that does lend yourself to potentially giving up big plays with how much they blitz and bring and leave guys in one-on-one coverage. So I'll be interested to see what Utah exactly does when they face Texas Tech, right? That's a top 25 team right now. They should be by the time they roll into Salt Lake City. How is Utah's aggression going to work in that game? I'm curious to see defensively. And keeping it rolling here, we got, once again, Ains 117 said, we're going to keep it rolling from there. You said, Ains once again said, I'm fine with Wilson being QB3. That's a really good QB3. Like, yes, Isaac was not a great backup last year, but he shouldn't have had to play last year. He should have been able to redshirt. So if Isaac is QB3, I think that's a massive win for this Utah team, right? UCLA getting decimated by UNLV is taking the sheen off last week's win. New coach inbound. I have no idea what that means, Jamie. I mean, just in terms of like Kyle Whittingham maybe being out after this year, like if he leaves, Utah's not going to fire Kyle Whittingham. I think there's a world where they decide to go their separate ways depending on how this season goes. In terms of Kyle's like, hey, I've decided it's time for me to retire, like parting ways in that sense. But Witt's not getting fired. And yes, like once again, it's not. Yes, does in a way UCLA not looking good again hinder our view of Utah a little bit? Yeah. But if UCLA is not very good and you went on the road and blew them out, that is once again massive. And I will once again remind everyone, it is very hard to win on the road in college football. We see this all the time. Kansas went to Missouri. They just lost today. This Texas, I think, is a really good team. How did Arch Manning look up at Ohio State? It's hard to win on the road in college football. So that also needs to be kept in mind, the fact that Utah was able to win on the road and UCLA is trying to win on the road, not doing a good job of that right now. Someone asked, is Fano hurt? They said they kept him out as a precaution, Spencer Fano or Logan Fano in this one. So that's what they talked about, is that they kept him and Jaron Kump out as a precaution in this one, which I am all for. If they don't want to play next week either, then I'm good with that too. A reminder, this Wyoming team does not look great. Utah is not going to take them lightly, but Wyoming is not Texas Tech. Like, simply as I can put it, Utah will be able to go up and win in Laramie. I feel very confident about that. Joe's De Leon said Byrd fella pretty good so far. Let's stay positive, and hopefully we can take care of all those penalties, but in pretty good shape for the Texas Tech game. Go Utes, always, regardless. Obviously, always go Utes. Love to see that. But yeah, I'm feeling good. I feel very good about where this team is at. Like, we also just have to have realistic expectations. This team put up 60 points, by the way, tonight still. So still very good. Like, there are going to be sloppy moments. There are going to be times where this offense can't convert a first down. They have to punt instead, especially as they're still trying to work in some new things. But this Utah team clearly has an identity. It's that physical rushing style that they use and enable. And it's an offense that has had a lot of success on the road already at UCLA, right? So I still like where this Utah team is at. I like what they're doing, and I believe that they're going to continue to progress in a positive direction. I love where this Utah football team is at and look forward to them continuing in that positive direction. A reminder, guys, continue to send in your thoughts and comments below, as we are taking your questions live on Locked On Utes right now. But the other thing you mentioned, Jose, is just how good Byrd looked. He looked fantastic, and I'm really excited to see more of him. Absolutely. Some of these comments. It's the secondary I'm most worried about right now, Hunter Judd said, and our Ains as well said that as well too. I think that's totally fair to say the secondary is a little concerning because they gave up some yards against UCLA at times. There was nearly some more big plays tonight. I think after watching the first few weeks of the season, if I'm Morgan Scalley, I think what I do to help the secondary is I don't know if I need to blitz as much. Originally, I thought Utah would have to blitz to get pressure. But then John Henry Daly decided to be, so far, one of the best pass rushers in college football. For those of you that think I'm crazy, I think PFF graded him as like the best pass rusher on a pressure consistently rate after week 1 of the season. So I got him. I'm going to have Logan Fano back soon. And also, like, especially if you get teams in 3rd and long, let's bring in a Cashton. Let's bring in a Paul Fitzgerald, the whole Lance Holtzclaw, whoever it is, to be some of the interior guys that are rushing as well, along with a Kafusi, whatever defensive tackle you want that's going to try with the bull rush to eat up the double team. I'd rather Utah rush 4 and drop more to preserve and prevent that coverage too, right? So that's where the secondary. I love Smith Snowden. Elijah Davis has been fantastic so far. Jackson Benne has made a lot of plays too. And, you know, Blake Cotton has given up some yards at times, but I still think he's doing good. Teo Johnson is such a strong, exceptional safety. Still waiting for Rabbit Evans to really make an impact. I don't think he got in tonight. I'm trying to remember if I did ever see him make a tackle. Scanning over everything, he was not listed as making a tackle, and I don't ever remember seeing him in the game. I did see it reported that he was dressed tonight, but I'm not sure if he ever ended up going in the game. So that is something going on there. See everyone going back and forth. Someone mentioned I'm also loving the trick plays and the use of Nate. I am too. I thought Smith Snowden's role with this team would be what Nate Johnson's is, but it's clearly what Smith Snowden is, and Smith Snowden is continuing to excel in that role, right? Utah started the game with a couple handoffs and just getting him involved. He had 2 carries for 15 yards in this game. Then as a pass catcher, he ended up getting 3 passes for -2 yards as one of those screens ended up getting blown up, and that kind of hurt the yardage a little bit. But Smith, just so naturally elusive. I loved what he showed at UCLA last week, and I want him to continue to be involved in this offense as much as he can, because I am very excited about what they're doing with Smith Snowden. He just looks very explosive. His ability to just make guys miss is absolutely remarkable. The natural feel, the natural instincts. I love what we're seeing from Smith Snowden so far too. JG, I appreciate you listening, JG. You said you were right about the pick 6, just wrong, dude. Yes, I thought it would be, I think I said Elijah Scooby Davis, I think is who I went with, and just ended up being Jackson Benne. So, and I love that for Jackson Benne based on how he's been starting the season. And how about 22 pick 6s in a year in a row, 22 seasons in a row with a pick 6 for Utah? That is hard to fathom. I told a friend that earlier today, just who's a college football fan, and he could not believe that we had 22 years in a row with pick 6. A remarkable stat, and it just speaks to the genuinely the consistency and strength of this Utah secondary, because it is year in and year out such a stout unit. That's how you're able to get pick 6s, obviously, in interceptions, is by having strong secondary, also a defensive line that creates pressure. Utah always has a really good defense, and they once again break the pick 6. They keep the pick 6 streak going. Love to see it, and really happy that it was Elijah Davis. Would have loved to have nailed. I'm happy. I said Jonathan Hall would get a pick. I did. Y'all can look back at that. I'm just happy I got one of those out, right? James Dillman said Kansas State blows this year. They're about to lose to Army. Wow, they are bad. If that's the case, I haven't gotten a chance to check in on that. That is that's hard to fathom. Wow, like the Kansas State was in some ways this year's Utah. A lot of the national media was saying Kansas State this year, Kansas State this year, Kansas State. Also, speaking of and teams that the media was high on in the preseason. Arizona State, last I checked, they were down 17-0 at half at Mississippi State. That's not great. So we could have another year in a row where a lot of these Big 12 preseason favorites are actually not the team that end up rising to the top. A lot of people like myself were a little lower on Iowa State this year. I've been really impressed with Iowa State. I think it's probably a good thing as of right now that Utah avoids them on their schedule. We're probably going to have to see them in Arlington as we stand right now if Utah gets there. But yeah, so impressed with just what this Utah team is able to do, because we've seen teams like, whether it's Kansas State, whether it's Arizona State, just look sloppy and not be able to win. Someone asked, is anyone actually out for the season? As of right now, no, I haven't heard any reports that anyone's out for the year. That it's just been said that some of these guys, and we'll look over some of the press conference quotes in a moment too. But the biggest thing to know for Utah is that you did hold some guys out to make sure that they are all healthy so far. Do you know what happened to Logan Fano? Ollie, it was already said in KYLE Whittingham's press conference that Logan Fano and Jaron Kump were held out for precautionary reasons tonight. In fact, while we are just talking about some of this stuff, let's really quick run through the biggest takeaways from tonight's press conference overall. Devon Dampier said he loved what he saw to Byrd Ficklin, showed what he can do and get the ball when he gets on the field and just ball. He absolutely did. Obviously, Steve Bartle of KSL Sports said had a quote from Devon Dampier saying, "No one was low effort, but we need to clean up those mental issues and tighten up next week." That's very true. KYLE Whittingham said the team wasn't quite as in sync on offense like they were last week, but overall happy with the performance. Said Byrd Ficklin looked good. That's where he talked about, Kump and Fano were held out for precautionary reasons. The potential Isaac Wilson red shirt is part of the equation, but they wanted to get Ficklin reps, which is very interesting. I don't know, if you redshirt Isaac Wilson, what are the odds he stays with the team? I'll just say that as well. I'd rather, if he's on the team and you think he's going to give you a chance to win, I get tonight giving him the reps. But if he was named your backup quarterback and you think he's the second best quarterback you have, I would play Isaac. But if they think Bird's the guy, then play Byrd by all means. Whittingham said he loves what Jason Beck's offense is continuing to do. And Whittingham said he enjoys watching Byrd from the sideline. He's a kid who has the right demeanor to play the position. So those were the biggest thing. Josh Furlong helping us out with a lot of those too. South Carolina Mapping said, do you think West Virginia versus Utah will be a good game still? I actually should say I missed it. If West Virginia, last I checked, was losing to Ohio. I don't know if they came back and win. One of you can let me know in the comments. As of right now, I think Utah will win that game. I could absolutely see it being a good game still, just because of what we talked about, how hard it is to win on the road in college football. Also, that's just later in the season, so it is more time for the 80-something new players that West Virginia brought in through the transfer portal to get on the same page, click, and improve. I will take Utah to win that game right now, and I feel good in saying that. I just think Utah is clearly a better team than a West Virginia team that was still struggling with, albeit a good MAC team and maybe even the best MAC team today. But I feel confident when I say Utah's going to win. I want to say Utah will win by 10 plus, but I don't think Utah's going to go into Morgantown and blow them out by 20. Could it happen? Yeah, this might be the best offensive line in the country, but I'm not going to sit here right now and say that, Utah is going to absolutely steamroll West Virginia. I think they'll win. They're better, but we'll see what ends up happening. Crow 13B said Utah red zone defense was awesome. They were, and that was something they were last year too. A reminder, this team had an incredible red zone defense because this team just does a great job of, at times they would give a big plays and explosiveness, bend don't break, right? And Utah did a very good job of that all last season. And I was always very impressed with this team's ability to, even when they would let something up, to bounce back. I think a large credit for that is how good this front seven is, right? You can pack the box a little bit more. You get safeties playing a little closer. You got guys like Lander, Jonathan Hall. Trey Reynolds has looked really good and fun so far this year too, right? So you just got a lot of guys in there defensively. Guys can create pressure. The corners are used to having to hold up one-on-one in coverage, but then they get to hold up one-on-one in coverage with the red zone obviously being smaller. So it's not as much yards you have to cover. So it's a little easier when you're out on an island like those Utah guys often have to be. So that's something to keep in mind too. Continuing to keep it rolling here with some of your guys' comments. As I mentioned, some of you guys. Make sure you guys continue to send any in if you have any questions overall about this Utah team. But I really like the position that this Utah team is in right now, feeling good about them. You guys were asking about the defense a little bit too and what they continue to propel and do. We talked about some of the top guys. I mentioned Trey Reynolds a little bit as a guy who continues to impress and stand out too. Rock Caldwell getting some game action tonight a little bit. That came late, but still, there's just like seeing Cyrus Polu get in for the first time this season. Just a couple of these guys finally getting the opportunities is something that I'm really encouraged by and like. And I just feel very good and obviously like the direction that Utah football is moving in as a program overall. And let's not forget like where some Big 12 teams are in. I don't know if y'all saw Oregon kind of laid it on Oklahoma State today. Was it 69-3 or something like that? I mean, it was bad, like very, very bad. Like there's losses on the road in college football, and then there's absolutely embarrassed and looking like you don't belong on the field with another P4 team. There were a couple of years ago where Oklahoma State you'd think would be able to go into Autzen and at least make that a game. Spread was 28.5. It should have been larger based on how that outcome ends up happening, right? So just crazy the way some things are playing out in the Big 12. Baylor came back today and beat SMU. That was a big win for the Big 12, especially after Baylor dropped the ball last week, lost to Auburn. And like we mentioned too, you got teams in the Big 12 right now, which I'm actually going to pull up and see what's happening. But in Arizona State, it's not doing well right now. Kansas State is driving with a chance to win, so we'll see what can happen there. Arizona State did put up 10 points in the third quarter, so maybe they'll be able to come back too. I don't think BYU, is going to have any trouble with Stanford. I think Stanford is bad. I mean, just putting it plain and simple, they are not very good. But Iowa State beating Iowa today, that was good for the Big 12. Missouri beating Kansas is tough, but that was going to be tough to go on the road and have to play them. Utah will see Kansas State later this season, or Cincinnati later this season. They just looked okay against Bowling Green, allowed them to put up 20 on them. So that's nothing crazy in that one overall to remark about. But yeah, I understand, as I said, why some of you guys are concerned and didn't love the sloppiness tonight. But let's also remember this is week 2 of a 12-week regular season, and hopefully longer after that. It is a process getting on the same play. I think Utah caught UCLA by surprise in some way last week with some of the new things and wrinkles that they tried. And now that some things were on tape, Cal Poly was able to do some things, but also just a matter of fact that Utah team was so fired up, so amped. You're at a 10, 11. Then you got to play Cal Poly. I think it's hard to keep that same level of focus throughout the week, knowing you can play everyone wants to play an A game. Utah could have played a J whatever game and down the alphabet, and they would have won this game tonight, right? Like that's just a matter of fact of how much better they are than this team. They were clearly better than Cal Poly, and that absolutely showed tonight. Utah stepped up and they did their thing. If you guys have any last questions, probably going to start winding down here in the next few minutes, so make sure you guys get those in before we go. But little thoughts briefly on just next week with Wyoming. I'm feeling great about where Utah is. I feel like this is a Utah team that is ready for the task of going up to Laramie. I think Utah is going to make a statement. I think they easily win that game by 15 plus. It's a Wyoming team that is not what they used to be. Does that mean Utah needs to take them lightly? Absolutely not. But this is a Utah team that is very strong right now. They're still playing very well overall. We are talking about them having to clean up small things. Could they be big things against P4 teams? Yes, but I'm just happy they're winning these games. Someone said props to our defense again, holding them on third down for 3 for 13. Yeah, this Utah third down defense is fantastic, and that's because Morgan Scalley, the blitzes he can create and draw up, how good John Henry Daly has looked through 2 weeks of the season. John Henry Daly has been remarkable. He's looking like the best Utah pass rusher since Jonah Ellis of 2 years ago, right? We were hoping Connor O'Toole, Van Fillinger would be that. Injuries to those guys kind of hampered them a little bit last year. John Henry Daly looks healthy, and after not doing a lot last season, has obviously committed himself and really grown in the offseason. And now he's one of the best pass rushers in the Big 12 and even college football, as we mentioned earlier. Still love what Lander Barton can do flying around, making plays, making things happen. Cornerbacks that are stingy, one of the best DCs in college football. This Utah team has a lot going for them. A lot going for them. And they're still going to be one of the best in the Big 12. I said slight step back. They still might end up taking that once they end up playing a really good team, or just an equal team, I should say, because UCLA clearly not right there. Friction Hitch saying go Utes. Obviously go Utes after another big win tonight. You love to see it. But this Utah team, they do their thing tonight. I love the direction this program and this team is heading in. I'm feeling good about them. They have things they need to continue to improve and grow on, but they're not going to blow everyone out. I'm just happy this offense is fun. It's exciting. Let's also not forget that I don't think Jason Beck has shown everything yet, and will continue to add new wrinkles and do some things, because Utah, they did a lot against UCLA, but they didn't even need to use the whole game plan there, as that one kind of got out of hand late, right? So I think there's new wrinkles and things that work into this offense. They'll continue to grow and improve. Devon Dampier will continue to get the timing down with his wide receivers, and in the meantime, be one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. This Utah offensive line will probably get Jaron Kump, Logan Fano on the other side of the ball. Obviously, they'll get those guys back soon too. So this is a Utah team that is moving in the right direction. They have the players. They have the power. Oh, wow. James Dillman said Kansas State did just lose. So Kansas State is 1-2, and they barely beat the FCS team they played. Chris Kleinman and his program have major problems that they need to figure out. There's a lot of Big 12 teams with major problems. West Virginia, actually didn't get to, I should have looked at that and see, did they actually lose today, since we were talking about that earlier. And that's the one score, of course, on the Big 12 schedule board I pull up that didn't update. So it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, right? But West Virginia, Ohio did win. Wow. So we have West Virginia, Oklahoma State. I still think Kansas is pretty good. I just think that's a tough one there. But those two, especially, and then even Kansas State, right? Those are three teams that are just they don't look good right now, like simple matter of fact. And that should make Utah fans feel very good, because we're going to see West Virginia. We don't see Oklahoma State this year. Oh, I wish we did. I wish we saw the Cowboys this year. But we do see later on in the season, we see Kansas State. There's time for Kansas State to figure it out, and just like Kansas last year figured it out and went on to knock off a bunch of Big 12 contenders. But this is a Utah team. I feel like they will be ready for that challenge. Still one of the best offensive lines in college football. Still some of the best coaching you're going to find in the Big 12 on both sides of the ball. An offense with creativity. Several guys able to make plays and make things happen. And it's a Utah team that is going to continue to make things happen. So that's going to do it for this live stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Can't wait to be back with you next week talking Utah football. We'll be going live again, talking about Utah versus Wyoming after that one wraps up. Can't wait to continue to see how the 2025 Utah football season continues to roll on. Special group of players, special team, one of the 15 best teams in college football for my money. Let me know in the comments where you think Utah belongs. I think they're definitely better than teams like Michigan and Florida, who ain't looking very good tonight at all. So big things ahead for the Utah Utes. Devon Dampier, Byrd Ficklin, and co. Get it done. KYLE Whittingham's team throttles Cal Poly 63-9. That's going to do it for Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you soon talking about your favorite team each and every single day.